This is the Big Deal Podcast, brought to you and powered by New Covenant Baptist Church in Albertville, Alabama. And on this podcast, we're asking the question, what's the big deal about all things Bible, theology, and culture? I'm Justin.
I'm Brad.
Welcome to the Big Deal.
I am Brad.
You are.
Even though I shave my beard, people might be like, who's the guest star?
Oh, that's so funny. That's not what I was thinking, but that's funny.
I don't know what you were thinking, but we'll just carry on.
Yeah,
I feel like it would be embarrassing.
Yeah, it would be embarrassing.
Yeah.
I got a question for you.
Oh, ask me.
All right. Would you rather...
Oh.
Okay. Would you rather have to shout all the time or only talk in a whisper?
Shout all the time. Because as you get older, you can't hear and you wind up doing that anyway.
Yeah. What I just think that's such a funny thing to like this is the
Whispering all the time would be gross, man. People think you're a creeper. It'd be like, hey, Johnson.
You're either gross or angry.
Yeah. Well, not angry. They would.
I mean, shouting.
They
It's
would
like,
think that guy's hard of hearing.
Yeah,
They'd be
yeah.
like, Justin, what's up? Like, God, you can't hear. I've known several older people who are hard of hearing, and I don't judge that. Because, look, they lost their hearing probably because they were mowing their yard, probably working in a factory.
Yeah.
Lost their hearing for the sake of their family, right?
Yeah.
And they talk so loud, and they don't know it because they can't hear.
I'd rather talk loud, too. Whispering's just creepy.
It is super creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shouting all the time is annoying. Stop it.
If you just
Stop.
Welcome to the Big Deal.
It's so gross. Stop. There are people who watch that stuff.
Brought to you and powered by New Covenant Baptist Church.
Yuckers. It's so gross. But people watch that. It's kind of like watching people mash pimples.
Yeah.
My only weird thing that I watch is fixing cow hooves.
Oh, that's disgusting.
I know what's
man.
wrong with me. But I actually have to trim hooves for sheep.
No, you like it. You like it.
I don't.
Look
but
at
I
him.
think
he likes it.
I love it so much.
You whispered.
Gross, man.
That's
Stop
grody.
whispering. It should be against the law.
Yeah.
You said grody.
I did
we
say
just went back
grody.
to 1991.
Yeah.
87, really.
It's grody. No, we were saying that through the 90s.
Were we?
Yeah.
It started in the 80s. I think the Valley Girls. Grody to the max.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Valley Girls. I remember that.
Yeah.
That's an old thing.
Woof.
Yeah.
Yep. That's like
Woof.
normal kids now hearing that's like, that's way back in the olden days.
Yeah, Valley Girls. Yeah.
That was like hearing, when I was in the 80s, like hearing something out of the 50s and 40s.
Yeah.
Oh, she's a flapper. What?
Flapper. Like the 20s or
Yeah,
something.
I don't know, man. It was a long time ago. My granddad remembered those days.
Oh, man, that's funny. Time is weird.
Time is super weird. I remember this so well. You old car shows, right?
Yeah.
I love this, man. They had a car show at the Dairy Queen, and they had all these old 50s cars out there, 40s. I was a kid. I was probably 13, and my granddad went in there, and I was like, look at that old Chevy. It was like a 57, and he could tell 57, 56, 55 by the tail fins on them. He knew it. And I was like, that car's so cool. And he was like, when I had one, I said, you had one? He said, yeah, it was a ragged out piece of junk. And I was like, what? No, this car's awesome. And then fast forward, and we are going somewhere. We're in Atala. They're having a car show.
Oh, yeah.
And somebody had my car. My first car.
It was your car?
It was not my car, but it was an
It was the
84
same.
Z28.
Yeah.
Because that's an antique now.
Yeah.
And I can't remember if it was Ethan or Zoe. They're like, that car is so cool. And I was like, well, when I had one, it was a ragged out piece of junk. And I was like, oh, no.
The big difference between you experiencing that in one day when I would be at the age to experience is that I don't think anyone in my generation will ever experience that, because our first cars aren't there. Like, no one wants them.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. My first generation of cars suck. No one cares about them.
I honestly think
They're
this
disposable.
is so weird.
Yeah.
I honestly think car manufacturing, we may be in a new age starting now, but I think car manufacturing peaked in the 70s with rock and roll music.
Yeah.
Because those 70s muscles cars, the Mustangs, the
They're awesome.
Chevelles, the Camaros, cool.
Joe
Dude,
Rogan
you
has
ever
a
pull
bit.
up next to them?
Yeah.
And they're like, and it's like, I feel so manly.
Yeah.
I want that car.
Yeah. Joe Rogan has a bit about those. He thinks it's because of psychedelics. and because he thinks everything's about psychedelics.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know? He loves them.
He's
And-
one of the other podcasts that like competes with us.
Yeah, he tries.
Yeah.
It's
He thinks
I'm
psychedelics.
proud of him. I think he makes like a solid attempt at podcasting.
Yeah, dude.
and
He tries to listen to his guests.
he copies us a lot.
A lot.
I'm just
Yeah.
kidding.
He could beat us up.
Yeah,
And
he could probably.
Yeah.
He's a strong little
Oh,
guy.
100%. He's
Yeah.
a black belt at 10th Planet.
Yeah.
God, I would
So-
love to roll with him and learn. That would be so great to
Yeah.
get beat up by Joe Rogan.
But he says that he thinks that like the 60s were like prime art in America because of
Psychedelics.
psychedelics. All the music was psychedelic driven. It was great music, great
no,
car
no,
design.
I don't
art and
think
stuff.
the 60s music is peak. I think it's 70s. We actually peaked at Skinnerd. And it's all downhill
Dude,
from there.
Skinnerd. Whoa.
Dude,
I know.
I don't know what's wrong with me, but
Hit the-
lately I've been
yeah.
on a Skinnerd kick, and like I think I listened to Tuesday's Gone 57 times.
Yeah.
And at the end of that song, they start going off like they did on Freebird, and they did that thing they did in the 70s. They wouldn't end a song.
Yeah.
They would make it
yeah,
quiet.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you listen, man, they cut that off too fast because something magic was about to happen. He hits
They
that
probably
cymbal.
just stopped playing though.
Yeah, well, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
He hits that cymbal 3 times and he starts going off on that guitar, and I thought, whatever was about to happen there, I wish it was captured for us. There's got to be a live version.
It was really hard to. It's really hard to end songs when you're on tape deck.
Yeah,
It's hard.
yeah.
So a lot of times they would just play through, and they crescendo at the end.
Yeah.
And stuff.
Well, I mean,
That's why so many of those songs back then were they end the same like that.
I don't know, man. You stop me if I'm just being a fanboy. I don't know why. But like Tuesday's Gone, Simple Man, Sweet Home Alabama, Freebird.
I mean, they're all
Holy
so good,
moly,
dude.
man.
So good. Leonard Skinner, man, I don't know. Their music has stuck. It's like it has aged well.
If you stick in Freebird, I don't care if somebody's 14 or 80.
Yeah.
It'll rock your face off to this day.
Yep.
Or Sweet Home Alabama, just dun, 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 dun. I mean, they're singing Sweet Home
I know.
Alabama in
They're-
Germany.
They
dude.
are in the middle of Africa.
I was in Austria.
Yeah.
And at a coffee shop, and this lady asked me where I was from. Mm-hmm. I said, Alabama. She said, like Sweet Home Alabama.
Yeah.
I said, yes.
Yeah.
And then she said, we probably shouldn't say this on the podcast, but I'm going to. She looked at me, how dare she? She said, Alabama, that's where all the racists lives, isn't it? And I looked at her. And
We're in Europe.
I said
Germany.
I said first of all, not all of them live there. They're scattered about.
yeah.
I said, but isn't this where the largest Nazi rally ever happened? And also, this is where you voted in your Führer.
Yeah.
Like Germany didn't take over Austria.
What'd she say about that?
She went, "Oh, you got me. Oh, now I should give you your latte." You know, whatever I ordered.
Yeah.
She's Austrians also sound German, just so you know. And they speak German.
Yeah.
or as I like to call it, German.
German.
But yeah, that was so weird. So she knew Sweet Home Alabama, and that we're a bunch of racists, which is not true.
It's not true.
It's not true.
There's actually
It's kind of true. There are racists here.
there are certainly, but there are racists everywhere.
Everywhere.
And I think a lot of people who move to the South are surprised, especially Alabama, surprised by the coexisting of like that happens here. That's perfectly normal and fine.
Yeah, we're super nice.
Yeah, like I went to a high school that was, I don't know, it was probably 30-40% black.
Yeah.
And, white was probably 50, 60. And then we had, a good Hispanic population. And I don't know, like no one ever really thought about it. During all the 2020-ish, around those outbreaks of violence and stuff, I'd say it's, Alabama didn't have a single one of them.
Yeah.
We didn't have the shootings. We didn't have the officer issues.
No.
We didn't have those things.
They had some protests in
There-
Huntsville and stuff, but
It
nothing
was
ever
just
got.
protests though. Like,
Yeah, we didn't burn nothing.
on other people's behalf.
Oh yeah. Also,
Yeah.
though, we do have a significant number of rednecks who will shoot you if you try to burn their stuff.
Yeah.
More so up than they have in the
probably true.
north.
Yeah.
It's like I will shoot you if you burn my business. I don't care.
Yeah.
So like, that was what she said. I don't know how we got. I think we should go back to just hating people by their country.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it used to not be white and black. It used to be, oh, he's French.
Canadians.
Golly,
Canadians.
I should tell. Can I tell you a terrible story?
What?
Have I told this about the Fusiliers from Great Britain, the infantry unit that I was with?
Yeah.
You want to hear this story?
Sure.
So they walk around with these cool berets, and they're insane people. And in their beret they have this feather. The bottom of it is white and the top is red. And so I was the chaplain there on the post, and some of those guys came to my Bible study. And so I asked them, I'm like, what's up with the feather? And they said, well, our unit is like 1,000 years old. Isn't that wild? And or 500 or 600 years old. But anyway, they had this fight with the French in like 1620 something. Mm-hmm. And the French had white feathers in their caps, and the British won. They shot them up. And when the battle was over, they stabbed them up, whichever way it was at that time. They took the French feathers and dipped it in the French blood and stuck it in their hat.
Oh, my.
And from that day until this one, they have that feather in their beret.
Wow.
And so I got to be friends with these heathen Brits. Man, they were nuts. Barbarians. And some of them were great. And all of them were great. I love all of God's warrior children. But anyway, some of them were in my Bible study. And at the last one, they were being deployed out, when they were finishing up, they gave me a feather at the Bible study.
Was it authentic?
It was authentic.
Like dipped in blood?
No, that's what I said.
Oh,
they
okay.
gave me they don't dip them in blood anymore, I guess. So they give me this feather, and they said, chap, we love you, and if you ever come to the tower, they have a museum, and you ask for me, and we'll get you in, and blah, blah, blah. So we were buddies. And he gave me the feather, and I said, I am not worthy of this. I didn't kill a Frenchman. And I laughed. They said, don't worry, we're going to kill one on the way home. We didn't. It was a joke.
That's funny.
They were crazy. Their chaplain was crazy.
Oh, yeah?
We were riding in a van, and a hornet got in there.
Uh-huh.
And he goes, watch this. It was like buzzing on the side of the window. And he goes, watch this. He takes off his beret, and he looks at the kid in the back seat, the Brit, Fusilier. He has his beret, and he whacks the hornet onto the kid. And he goes, oh, chap, it almost stung me. And he was like, oh, yeah. And then it came back to the window, and he elbowed me. He hit it on the kid again, and it stung him. He goes, oh. He said some things I won't repeat on the podcast. He said, chap, it stung me. He goes, pull your pistol, man. Your life is in danger. Shoot it. What is wrong? And everybody laughed, even the kid that got stung.
Yeah.
That's the kind of nutcases you work with.
That's so funny.
So the next time I'm at Lowe's, and every time I'm at Lowe's or somewhere, and I take that parking spot, and somebody says, thank you for your service, I think about the kind of people I serve with, and I think, well, if you only knew the crazy stuff that people get up to for the sake of your freedoms.
Yeah. Because they're bored. What are you talking about?
Bored people. Or they're just wild people. There are stories and you know how I'm on this podcast.
Yeah.
I have stories I will not tell on this podcast of things that I had to go, you did what, brother? You did what?
My brother in Christ.
My brother in like humanity. Yeah. You did what? I'm not talking about like bad stuff like murder, kill, but just like pranks they pulled on one another. Yeah. And it's like, okay, I don't even know what to say.
Not sure that's a prank, pal.
Not sure, at some point, that's assault, brother. You know what I'm saying? And his buddy's like, are we going to get him back? Yeah. They don't say it like rednecks from Alabama, but they are rednecks. There are rednecks
There's
in
rednecks
Britain.
all over.
Yes, there are. Mm-hmm. And I was sitting at a table full of them one time, all these 18, 19-year-old Brits that are in the Army, and they're talking, and I can understand most of them. Mm-hmm. And there was this one kid at the table, so he says, hey, chap, what did you go? That's what it sounded like. And I said, I looked at him and I was like, guys, I'm sorry. I'm from the South. We talk, so I don't know what he's saying. It was like, oh, cheers, man. We don't know what he's saying either. He was like a boomhauer of the people. He was like, oh, yes, I'm going to do this. That's what he sounded like. I was like, are you speaking English, brother?
There's like no consonants. And
you are from England.
Yeah,
it was
that's
like,
bottle of water.
Yeah, that's how he talks. He's like, all right, Mike. It's like, I think what you said is English. My brain lagged every time this kid talked to me. I don't know. I tried to share Jesus with him.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. That kid, man. God save that kid. Wherever he is, the queen and that kid. Well, I guess the queen's dead. Save the king and that kid.
The king, yeah.
Oh, good times, man.
We went from Leonard Skinner to that.
I am not right.
Yeah, something's wrong there, man. But it's endearing.
It's the same vibe.
Yeah.
That's what Leonard Skinner was a bunch of rednecks. They named
They're so good at guitar playing and music, though.
They named their band after their shop teacher.
Yeah.
And I keep harping on it, but like you think about the guitar riffs and just the sounds they made with their guitars.
Yeah.
Was cutting edge. They did that first, and then the piano player was amazing.
They were all good.
Like the
Really
piano player goes
talented.
off and Tuesday's Gone, and I will hold down the rewind button just to listen to him play. And the recording's not great because it's 73 or something.
Yeah.
And sometimes the guitar's a little too loud, and I'd say a little too loud. You can't hear what the guy's doing. I would love to isolate some of the piano riffs that guy does because he is doing Chopin in there.
Yeah.
It's like Beethoven. And also the bass guitar player does not get his, like if you isolate the bass, what he's doing even during Freebird, it's like it's crazy.
Yeah. They're good, man.
I love it.
Yep.
All
They're
right,
good.
we'll talk about the Bible.
Yeah, we're going to go to the Bible now. This is Exodus 20. We finished the Ten Commandments. We did.
Now we know how to behave.
You know what to do.
What not to do.
Israel knows what not to do,
And what to
not
do.
to murder, to not to adultery, to
Honor
not
your
to
father and
steal.
mother.
Yeah, to do those things.
We ought to not to.
Ought to not to. When they get, the Ten Commandments are over, and it says in verse 18, all the people witnessed the thunder and lightning, the sound of the trumpet, and the mountain surrounded by smoke. When the people saw it, they trembled and stood at a distance. You speak to us, and we will listen, they said to Moses, but don't let God speak to us, or we will die.
We will die.
I like that.
Oh, I like it. It
Yeah.
was scary, man.
Yeah.
Thunder and lightning at the giving of the law of God.
Yeah. It's like that's that's what it's like to experience God's presence.
Yeah. I know it. Yeah.
I don't know. Like, what do you think? There's anything specific? Anything? Well, besides like the
Symbolic or-
yeah. Well, the mountain surrounded by smoke, and the sound of the trumpet. Those things are like they persist in the Bible.
Yeah.
As representing God's presence and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The sound, the smoke is also reminiscent of Genesis 15. When the smoke in the flaming pot.
Flame pot.
Yep.
When God made his covenant with Abraham.
Yep.
It's actually not much of a covenant because Abraham didn't do anything.
Yeah, he didn't do
He kind of
much,
just made a promise.
Yeah.
But we call it a covenant, and it is. But
Yeah, it
you know
is,
what I'm
but
saying.
yeah.
But what was Abraham's job?
Follow me. Continue.
Yeah,
Actually,
continue.
it's just continue. To,
And pretty much no matter what, I'm going to do this for you.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
So smoke and fire and lightning and thunder, it scared them to death.
Yeah. What do you think the deal is about, like them wanting Moses to speak to God, but don't let God speak to us or we will die? Were they actually in danger of death from God speaking to them?
I think they actually thought they were.
They thought they were.
I think they were terrified.
Yeah.
I mean, we're so, you don't see miracles. We don't see God, these things like they see very often. I mean, maybe.
They didn't see it very often either.
No. Now, they saw it way more often than we did during the
Well,
Exodus, right?
Yeah,
It was
the
a prime
Exodus.
time.
Yeah, that's the miracle
I mean,
zone.
if somebody said, "Come with me," and you went to the top of, if you went down, I'm trying to think of even.
Let's park about just there for a second. I think that's just an interesting thing to think about. The Exodus is like primetime miracle time.
Yes,
in the Bible. So there's like a modern kind of unction. People get all like kind of. They wonder why God doesn't keep doing the miracles. Why can't they experience the miracles that are in the Bible, and they believe that there's something wrong with the modern church, or that either that or those things didn't happen.
Yes.
Like miracles don't really happen. So that's like their only two options. So they either become super charismatic trying to manufacture them, or they become agnostic.
That they don't happen because I've never seen one.
Yeah, exactly. Anti-supernaturalist. And I think like it's worth like taking a better look at the narrative of the Bible and realizing that when miracles occur, they really occur like in a short time frame, what concentrated time frame, the Exodus,
Yeah.
presence of Jesus, Elijah, Elisha. Majorly, that's about it.
That's it.
Yeah.
And so, we're talking about conservatively, right, from the narrative of a continual narrative from Moses till now, or till the end of the canon, what? 3,000 years, 3,500 years from Moses to Jesus.
35. Yeah.
So in 3,500 years,
Yeah.
If you just wrote down every single miracle, excluding Exodus and Jesus' ministry,
Oh my! Well, I mean,
it's like 50 maybe. I'm just spitballing. Elijah and Elisha.
but Elijah and Elisha are a huge concentration of them.
Yes.
You take Elijah and Elisha out
With the Exodus,
with the Exodus,
you got nothing.
and
hardly.
you have like these. You have Moses, Elijah, and Jesus.
Yeah.
And they are, when you get into the New Testament, people are talking about who Jesus is. They're thinking about Elijah
Yeah.
often,
Yeah.
or Moses.
Yeah.
Because they're the only two
And
real
they're
miracles.
supposed to.
Yeah.
Because the stuff wasn't supposed to start happening until the one like Moses arose.
That's right.
Because Moses says that there's going to arise one like me. And when he does, listen to him.
Yep.
And it's Jesus.
Yeah, and when they're trying to, if it's not Moses, okay, this isn't Moses. Who do they think Jesus is? Are you Elijah?
Yeah.
Reborn or whatever?
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
What's happening? Because
Yeah.
this is weird.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so outside, man, we need to think through that. Like, see if we can come up with a list of miracles that happen outside of them.
Yeah. It's not a lot.
It's not like you think of like all the
I mean, the
kings
early
and
church, right? The
Yeah.
establishment of the church, we could call it the Jesus early church era.
post-ictal Jesus,
Yeah.
just keeps on kind of fading out after
Yep,
that. you
yep.
know?
And people think, well, something's wrong. We've got the Holy Spirit and all that stuff. But he was around all the time.
Yeah,
he was
yeah.
always there.
It just seems like concentrated around the presence of Jesus,
Yeah.
and
I'll tell you this: if real, like verifiable miracles, not a bunch of charlatans running
Mm-hmm.
around, like real miracles started popping up, I'd be like, you get your coat.
get your coat.
Get your coat. It's
Yeah.
over.
It's
It's
coming.
coming back. This
Yeah.
is it.
Yeah, something's happening, man.
Yeah.
'Cause this is rare. This is super rare.
Yeah.
So there's this perception about the Bible that Bible times were miracle times. That is a wrong perception.
Yeah.
There are these three concentrations really during the time of the Bible, not spanning the whole thing, but during the Exodus, during the ministry of Elijah and Elisha, and during the ministry of Jesus.
Yeah,
really.
Abraham walked with God, right?
Yeah.
And I cannot think off the top of my head a single miracle he saw other than the presence of God.
Yeah. It's like
The one that you could call a miracle maybe is the opening of
or Sodom and Gomorrah, maybe. you could
Sarah's
think of-
womb.
Yeah.
But that's like a judgment, not really a
I
miracle.
know it, yeah.
I think if you watched the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah
Yeah.
from a naturalistic point of view, it probably looked like a meteor hit the place or
Yeah,
something.
that's what they found. They found it. We talked about that on the podcast.
Yeah.
We showed that article. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of wild. Yeah, but yeah, so like things that are like
Dead
against
people
nature,
come into
supernatural kind of stuff.
Axe heads floating.
Yeah,
Uh,
Daniel got one or got a little bit of it.
was
Didn't he? The writing on the wall.
yes.
He got one.
The king did that. Or the king of Babylon. Mene,
Yeah.
up and shaman or whatever.
Uh-huh.
You've been tried in the balance. That's a pretty hard.
yeah.
Yeah, that is a hard line right there,
Yeah.
man. You've been tried and weighed in the balance and been found wanting.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
I
a
know,
line right there,
That really
buddy.
is. Yeah.
And
Goodness
then
gracious.
and then they call him and he's like, "What does that mean?" And he goes, "It means before the night's over, you're dead."
yeah. Golly.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. There's not miracles are not common. in
No,
the
no,
Bible.
you should not have a expectation of miracle.
Yeah.
That's not what Christianity is.
In fact, there is like Paul calls in 1 Corinthians 1, he says the Jews want signs
Yeah.
and the Greeks want wisdom, but I came preaching the
Christ
foolishness, Christ crucified, the foolishness of preaching.
Yeah.
And so you shouldn't be expecting miracles. Miracles are
No.
not like supposed to, and Jesus got frustrated when people kept on asking for miracles.
Like he was a circus.
Yeah.
I want to be really careful because I don't say you should expect miracles because they're miracles, right?
Yeah.
But like it doesn't mean you shouldn't ask for them,
Yeah.
and it doesn't mean that they won't happen. And it sometimes things will happen in your life. Even this is rare, brother. Maybe you can correct me. Maybe others out there get offended at it. I don't care. Actual answered prayer. like
clear
bam.
kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Oh,
like being told you're not gonna have any more kids. It's 1 in 2 million.
Yeah, and then
2 years later you're
Yeah.
pregnant and you've prayed about it, and it's like you feel like God did that thing.
Yeah.
And you
Oh,
go to
no,
the doctor and like, yeah, it can happen. This is crazy. It's like 1 in 2 million. It's like, I think God did this.
I'm fine with saying God did that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But
Well, God
like,
does all
I
things,
feel
so
like
that's-
that was a miracle.
Yeah.
But like it is like God intervened somehow, but
Yeah.
it's not like
We're not. It's not the same thing as what's happening in the Exodus.
no, it's
where
not
you have
the mountain
like
shaking. It's not
That's
Jesus
right.
walking by a dead kid
a pillar of fire
and
you
saying to the widow's son, get up.
Yeah.
And the kid wakes up, or the little girl Tabitha who's dead, and he says, Talitha Kumi, like, get
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
And the mourner's already in there crying, and she gets up and she's like, I'm hungry. And he
Yeah.
goes, get her something to eat.
Yeah.
I'm talking about, there are times in your life where you pray for things and God, you ask for it and God does it. And you're like, it's stunning.
Yeah, and there's like these if you ever get into like theological studies about this, which it's boring. We did it already. Okay, we can just ask us about it.
We'll just tell you for free. We haven't paid.
There's this thing that they talk about. They classify miracles and miracle workers in the Bible.
Yeah.
You have like I can't remember all the classifications off the top of my head, but you have there's bearers of numinous power is what they call it.
Yeah.
And then there are so like a bearer of numinous power is someone like Jesus who has the numinous power in themselves. And then they have like some other word about someone who like is attributed numinous power. Like they represent God in this moment. It's like an apostle doing Peter, things like that. Moses. And then you have this other category of like these, the Witch of Endor and stuff who are like,
It's my favorite character name.
yeah, that's coming up for you in preaching. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. So
I got to figure
they have
that
these
out.
different classifications about miracle working and stuff in theological studies. And something you'll realize when you do that is that when we talk about miracles, a lot of times we're talking about the bearer of numerous power, like Jesus walking in the room and healing someone immediately. Like they go from seeing shriveled arm to whole arm.
Yes.
And that's not oftentimes what we're talking about. When we think I'm praying for a miracle for my injured loved one, we're not really.
I preached on this Sunday in chapel. And it was Psalm 103. It says that he forgives all of our iniquities and he heals all our diseases.
Yeah.
In the poem, right?
Yeah.
And people will read that and think it means like a miraculous recovery from like cancer or something. But anytime you get well, it's because God healed you.
It is true.
Yeah. If you're still here, it's because God's healed you.
Why does your body work well?
Yes. Why does your body fight off disease?
Can God make your body work a little bit better?
Absolutely.
He can. And so I think a lot of times,
My God is so big, so strong, and so mighty. There's nothing my God cannot do.
So like we were talking about this the other day with Archer. He had that fall and everything, and it was like such a tiny little head bump, man. It caused such like damage and everything to him that we're like looking at it like it's a miracle. It lasted. We went this long without that. It was such a tiny little head bump,
and it also tells you like how good your head works when things are working.
Yeah,
like
that's a miracle
I have
too.
slammed my head before.
Yeah.
And if that had been Archer, could have been a goner.
Oh,
for
yeah,
me,
for sure.
I'm walking around and people are laughing at me.
Yeah.
It's like I walked right into that door jam, just pow. It's crazy.
So so miracles are really just.
They're miraculous.
They're miraculous but they're isolated in these.
They have to be.
Yeah.
I mean, God is programmed into the matrix of our lives. However it is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, however this reality is that God has made it, that it runs by certain rules.
Yeah.
And he did that on purpose so we could figure them out.
Yeah.
And so that we could build things like desks and doors and
you're talking
cars.
about like just the miracle of like why things work,
The
laws of nature.
No,
and
I'm
stuff.
saying God built in the laws of nature, right? Like if I hit that microphone, it moves, right? That's the laws of nature, physics. This is hard. A miracle is when God, the programmer, goes, okay, I know that I know that this guy's dead.
Yeah.
Right. That the laws of physics and all that. He ain't got no life in him. He's dead, and the decay started. But I am gonna just hit the Control Alt F1 and raise this guy up from the dead, like it's a video game.
Yeah,
He can do that.
Yeah.
So all laws of physics that he's built into the universe are bypassed at that moment.
Yeah.
That's what an actual miracle
So
is. It's
would you
unexplainable.
say? Would you say like when the person has the baby or whatever, and they're not supposed to have kids?
It's not. It might be, but we wouldn't see it. So like,
Yeah.
like if we didn't know, like let's say Sarah's miracle of having babies.
Yeah.
Maybe she was born, with no uterus or like she didn't have eggs in her ovaries. Things can happen,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And God like miraculously went pow, and
Yeah.
did something. We would not see it. But like people like with Amy and I with her endometriosis. I hope I'm not oversharing. My wife beat me up later. And they're like, it's just really hard because this is where the endometriosis has grown. It's really hard for the eggs to fall. It's going to get worse. So statistically speaking, pregnancy's unlikely.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't say it cannot happen, right? Well, maybe God like had that egg fall down and dodge all the
Yeah.
endometriosis and stuff and got it. But it's not technically a miracle.
Yeah.
A miracle is like, I don't care what kind of scientific thing you put on it, it makes no sense. For example, Jesus coming back from the dead after 3 days.
Yeah.
If you sent a team of lab-coated scientists to watch, they still couldn't explain what just
That's
happened.
right. Yeah.
Or the guy who goes in and he's got a cancer through his brain. And it's like, you're gonna die, brother. Get your affairs in order.
Yeah.
And then like they take another scan a week later because he's feeling better, and it's absolutely gone.
Yeah.
And they're like, we don't know what happened, and we can't explain it.
Yeah.
Something happened, and doctors will tell you
That happens.
sometimes that stuff happens,
Yeah, yeah.
and they're like, we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah.
And I don't. Some might say it's a miracle.
Yeah.
Some doctors and some of them will just say, sometimes this stuff happens.
Yeah. And so, it's kind of interesting. Sometimes that's what, when we talk about miracles, modern day, when we talk about praying for miracles, we're usually asking about those kind of things. We're not usually asking God to show up in a pillar of fire.
No.
Right? You're not asking for that. You're asking for healing and for like
we pray for doctors. Like
Yeah.
I bet you people who don't believe think, why don't you just ask God to do it? What does he need doctors for?
Yeah.
Well, he uses means too.
He does. He does. And actually, if you think about like if you lived, 1,000 years ago and you got sick, something happened to you, and you got transported to the modern age and put in Baylor Health Medical Center in Dallas or something, or St. Vincent's in Birmingham, and they started working on you, you would probably be thinking this is a miracle.
You would 100% think it's a miracle.
They fixed my broken leg.
In 1100
Yeah.
AD, if you fell off a horse and broke your leg 50-50, you're going to die. Like not your leg's going to be crooked.
Yeah.
You're going to die.
and get it amputated at some point.
Yeah, which if you got your leg amputated, you're probably going to die.
Yeah.
because of infection.
Yeah.
Right. So what's crazy? If you could go back to 1100,
Yeah.
you could literally cut your palm open.
Yeah.
And it start festering, and you get blood poisoning
Yeah.
or what gangrene, and
Yeah.
you die.
Yeah.
And you start getting gangrene, and
Yeah.
you're like, "I'm dead. I'm going to be dead in 7 days." Everybody's. And I said, "Here, take this pill. It's called penicillin."
Yeah.
And you took it. Nobody. So in 1100, it worked like a charm because nobody ever took it before.
Yeah.
There's no resistance in the
Yeah, yeah.
bacteria, and this dude would get well.
Yeah.
And they would think, "This man's a miracle
It's a
worker.
panacea.
He
Yeah.
is what in the world, dude?
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
he
For
should
sure.
have died."
Yep.
And he
For
didn't.
sure.
So I pray for doctors.
Yeah. And, it's because it is also in a sense miraculous in that same sense, like that God has, it is God in charge of everything. It's all knowledge, God's knowledge. That's true. So if a researcher or a doctor discovers an incredible medicine and a good thing like that,
Yeah.
that is a blessing from God.
I think
and you
God-
can honor God for that.
I'm a parent,
You know?
right? And a lot of times when you help your children, you do it in subtle ways so they feel like they've done something.
Yeah.
Because you want to build their what am I thinking? You want to build their esteem. I
Yep.
think the UPS guy's knocking on the
He
door.
is. Yeah, he is. He totally is.
I will tell you what. I'll tell you about miracles.
Uh-huh.
If a real miracle happened,
Uh-huh.
it would be like man, I'm going to tell you, people may not believe it, but I think this is true. If you saw a real miracle, it'd scare you to death.
Yeah.
I'd be terrified.
You'd be terrified. I think these people on the mountain are terrified.
Yeah.
They have experienced things.
I've done funerals, right?
That make you poop yourself.
Lots of them.
Yeah.
If a dude came in and he said he was a Christian or whatever, and the Lord had sent him here to raise this guy from the dead. First of all, I think he was a nut. Straight up. I'd probably try to tackle him.
Yeah,
get him out of there.
Yeah, for sure.
Because this grieving family and all this stuff. Because this guy's involved.
He's about
dead.
to like make.
And he walked in and he took that corpse's hand and said, "In the name of Jesus Christ, stand up and walk." And that dude started coughing and got out of it. I would be absolute. First thing I would think is, I'm being punked.
Yeah.
Like this ain't real.
Yeah.
But then when I realized it was real, terrified. That would terrify me. And I don't care who you are, that'd be scary.
It would be. Oh my goodness!
Wouldn't that scare you to death?
It'd scare me to death. It's
I would be terrified of that guy.
It would change my life forever.
Forever.
And it did.
Yeah.
Because it happened. And it changed their lives forever. And it's changed all our lives.
Jesus of Nazareth did that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Yep.
And so, like, if a guy came in and said, "I'm a Christian, I follow Jesus Christ," and he grabbed a dead dude's hand in a funeral home, and that guy got up and walked, I'd listen to whatever that guy said.
Yep. And they did.
Yeah.
The ones who believed, did.
I will listen to you, buddy.
Yep.
Would you please examine my theology and tell me where I'm wrong? What am I done?
Yeah,
I don't know what I'm doing. Wherever you go, I'm going to sell my stuff. Me and my wife and the kids are going to follow you around.
Going to follow you around, man.
And be like, "No, don't." I'll be like, "Okay, I won't. You tell me not to, I'm not going to do it. Whatever you say."
Yeah. Do you have a newsletter?
You got a newsletter? Where could I give? Where can I contribute? I'd like to get in on this action. You have the ominous dominus, the what you call it, the numinous.
Numinous power.
You are a Numenorian.
Yeah.
That's
bearer
a Tolkien.
of numinous power.
Yeah. He's a bearer of numinous power.
It comes from pneuma, which is spirit, right?
Yeah, right.
So it's like
breath.
Yeah, exactly.
Pneumonia.
Spiritual power. But they have to, when they're doing theology, you have to have good words for it.
It would be scary.
Yeah.
I would be scared. I mean, I would rejoice.
Yeah.
But there would be like this, what just happened?
And so I think that gets us to what happens next in the passage in verse 20.
Happens, the big deal.
Yeah. Moses responded to the people. So they said, "Don't let God speak to us or we'll die."
We'll die.
Right?
They're
terrified. They've just seen crazy stuff.
Yeah.
They're showing up and God's scary on the mountain.
And God had warned them before this. He's like, "Tell nobody to approach the mountain.
Yeah.
Tell them don't do this stuff or they'll die." And they're like, "Okay, whatever." And then it's like,
and he's like, "We'll die."
"You shall love God with all of your heart." And they're like, "Ah!"
And God says, "Don't be afraid."
This is great.
Easier said than done, God.
This is the God of the Bible contradicts itself because finish the verse.
You don't be afraid, for God has come to test you, so that you will fear Him and will not sin. Yeah, don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid. Be afraid.
Yeah, be afraid. And that is a fascinating passage. And so, like on one hand, you would say tongue in cheek, the Bible contradicts itself.
Yeah.
But some people actually would look at this in a kind of like a skeptical sense, like, this is ridiculous.
This is ridiculous.
Yeah, the Bible. This is an obvious contradiction.
Well, it's not even you. If I were an unbeliever, I wouldn't say this is a contradiction. I'd say this is stupid.
Yeah.
Like he's a dumb guy that wrote this. Don't be afraid. God has come to test you so that you'll be afraid.
Yeah.
What does even that mean?
But if you have if you care, if you have eyes to see, as Jesus would say, it's like, and you care about these things, it's like you realize that is a bit profound.
It is really profound.
Yeah.
It's sort of like in basic training or something where, like these are the rules.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid. These are the rules. It's very scary and hard. It's going to be hard.
Yep.
But you're going to be fine. We're giving you these rules so you'll be afraid to break the rules.
Yeah.
Right? If you break the rules, you should be afraid.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what he's saying. He's like, don't be scared of this mountain and stuff. God is here to test you and to show you who He is and that He means business. Mm-hmm. He's about to drop some laws on you.
Yeah.
And He's showing you who He is so that you'll be afraid if you're thinking, I'm going to steal something. Then you might remember this mountain and the thunder and the lightning and be like, okay, maybe I shouldn't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so that you will fear Him and will not sin. So it's like, there's a sense in like, don't be afraid of the experience.
Yeah.
You should fear God.
Yes.
Like God is the one who is scary.
You should fear God.
Yeah.
You should be a God-fearer.
Yeah, and that's the theme of the Bible. It comes up over and over again, to fear God. And it's a little weird, I think, in English. Like we we don't use fear like this in this sense. It's because it has a. It's not like it's just horror. Sometimes when we think of fear, we think of like, especially like in suburban America, you think of a horror movie.
Yeah.
You think of like a scary movie Halloween.
Or an irrational like thing.
Irrational,
like,
like
I'm
spiders.
scared of spiders, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we don't really think so much of like the kind of fear that comes from respect.
Respect. Yeah.
Because we just use the word respect.
Also because we got a bunch of. Also because fathers don't discipline their children.
Yeah, yeah.
And I would hazard to say, you know my kids.
Mm-hmm.
I think my kids love me a bunch.
Yeah, they do.
I think when they do wrong, they're afraid of me.
Yes. And that's getting to what is.
They're
yeah.
afraid of the consequence. Not that I
That's a
abuse
healthy
my children or
thing.
anything.
Yeah.
They're like, if I do this, my father will ensure that there are consequences to this wrong action.
Yeah.
Whatever those consequences are.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just a
For sure.
whooping, but it's like, I'm going to lose privileges. This is going to happen. He's going to lecture me. Or, you know, even,
Yeah.
and I think this is part of love, even like not, he's going to punish me, but
Yeah.
I'm afraid my dad will be displeased with me.
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with I don't want to feel his disappointment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. I'm afraid of his disappointment.
Yeah.
And so that kind of respect and reverence is what he's getting at here.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to like soften the blow,
No.
pull the punch, I guess.
No.
It's supposed to be a bit of terror too.
Yes, it is.
Like, and God is we were talking with the students not too long ago about the scariest thing you've ever seen or the scariest thing in the world. And it's actually God. The answer is God. Because they were saying, well, Satan's scary or something. No, Satan's got nothing on God.
I actually tell people I've only been scared once in my life.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, yeah.
And
I
that's
love
the
this
day I
story.
got saved.
Yeah.
When I realized that Jesus Christ is the Son of the living God.
Yep.
And that I had sinned, it was the first time in my life I was truly afraid.
Yeah.
Now, I've been scared before, right?
Yeah.
And I've been nervous and all that. But when I realized that I was under the just condemnation of a living God, I was horrified.
Yeah.
It literally scared me to death.
Yeah.
The old man I was died.
Yeah.
He died.
Yeah.
That guy's gone.
He's gone.
Dude.
He's dead.
The first time I knew that God Almighty, and that's how you say it in Alabama, God Almighty
Yeah.
was displeased at me and should be, I died.
Yep.
And then I lived.
For sure. That's
First
how
time
it
I was
works,
alive,
man.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
man.
the gospel.
I thought, man, if I could serve this God, what a privilege.
And that's what the Lord's getting at here is that there's this kind of fear that it doesn't exclude love. In fact, it's I think it's kind of difficult to have this kind of fear for God without love for Him. Also, it includes love. It's like love is the precursor for it.
Right.
You know? Love the Lord your God with all your heart.
So
Him.
I'm a Christian, and all my sins are forgiven, right? Mm-hmm. You sure? All of them.
Every one of them.
Past, present, and future?
Yeah.
So I can sin and still be saved?
Yeah.
So what's the motivation not to sin?
I would say it's fear of God.
Fear of God, but He's not going to judge me, right? I'm not going to go to hell.
I want Him to be pleased with me.
That's
I love
it.
Him so much.
The goal, or the deterrence from sin for us is not that God's going to smack us.
Yeah.
It's that his heart would
that's
hurt.
not exactly. That's not the way the fear. I know that's and maybe if you're kind of like new to thinking about some of these things, that might be a little weird to get your head around. But it is true. That's how it works. It's like I'm not afraid of retribution from God.
No.
But I am like it breaks my heart when I realize I've done wrong.
Maybe it might be easier to think of this when you're in a position of power. Okay. You have small children.
Yeah.
Have you ever rebuked or done something careless to your child, like yelled, raised your voice, did something, and you saw that it hurt them, and you realized that what you did was wrong?
Oh yeah.
I'm glad
it was
admitted that.
overreaction. I
overreacted.
I went too far.
I went too far. I didn't listen.
Yeah.
I jumped to a conclusion.
Oh, for sure.
You see the hurt in their eye?
Yeah.
They have no power to punish you.
No.
They have no power to interact any of their will upon you at all. And in that moment, you wish you were dead.
Yeah.
It's like, I have done something horrible.
Yeah.
That is that's what I mean when you say
and
you
if
love
that
God.
happens, you should say sorry.
100,000.
children.
If you never tell your kids you're sorry, you're a scumbag.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you sin against them.
Yeah.
I think about my kids.
And you're teaching them to never
say they're
apologize.
sorry. I tell I'm sorry, kids.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that you don't listen to my podcast. Yeah. But like, I tell my kids, I'm sorry. That was wrong. I overreacted and I should have listened to you.
Yeah.
And I will try to do better. And
Yeah.
then they say, you never listen to me. And I go, I listen to you all the time. And then I yell at them. And they deserve it that
Evie
time.
just forgives me. She's like, it's okay, Daddy.
Oh,
I
my
forgive you."
goodness.
Yeah.
And that makes it
And
worse.
and she'll say, sometimes we all get mad, Daddy.
Can I tell a story? Shout out to JT and Allie and Jake.
Yeah.
Dude, sometimes kids tell you stuff.
Yeah.
And it is straight from the mouth of God.
Uh-huh.
And I love it.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting with JT. He's like, what is he, 3, 4?
4, I think.
He might be 4.
He's 4. Yeah.
He's in that age. He's
Yeah.
my buddy. He's also 65 years old.
He is. He's a 4-year-old,
he's a
65-year-old.
4-year-old. And he's sitting with me, and you're teaching over there
Yeah.
about the church.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And you
Wednesday
said,
night.
you said, where is Jesus? And we're sitting over kind of by ourselves, and JT leans over to me, and he goes, Jesus is in our hearts. And I said, is he, buddy? He goes, yeah. It's disgusting in there. Jesus lives in a disgusting house.
Gosh,
man.
he is so funny, dude.
He's so funny.
He is such
but
a
he
funny
said
kid.
it to me like, just between me and you, it's disgusting in there. Yes, oh my goodness. So we had a nice little theological talk
man,
there
I
after
love
that.
that,
But
dude.
that was
I love
that's
that.
every once in a while a kid will do that, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we should be afraid of God.
Yeah.
And it's disgusting in there. JT, the philosopher, theologian that he is at 4, hit
Yeah.
the nail on the head on that one. And here's what's beautiful about it. When I hear kids say things like that, Jake and Allie never articulated to him, hey, man,
Yeah.
it's disgusting in your heart.
Yeah.
That means he actually is doing theology
Yeah.
at his age. He's thinking about something he's heard, and he's like, it's not clean in there.
Mm-hmm.
Like something's up. Just a little guy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing, man.
There's this meme that me and Steph always throw around all the time. It's we make fun of Disney movies because Disney, the whole like meta theme of Disney is follow your heart. You know? And so there's this there's this meme that we saw years ago. It was like a comic, and it was a mom telling their daughter follow your heart, and the next scene was the heart. And it had like fangs on it, and it was saying sin.
Yeah, that's what your heart tells you, man.
Yeah, and it does. Yeah,
And the thing that will
it's
keep you from
disgusting
that
in
is
there.
the fear of God.
Yeah,
I had a friend one time tell me he got very happy about his parenting because his kids were at school and something bad happened and they got punished. They felt unjustly, like something happened. They had to go talk to the principal, and they said the principal's acting like he's Pharaoh, and they thought, oh, they understood the Exodus story. They're using this as a metaphor in their life. It's like, they call it something there. He's
That's
acting
so
like
funny.
Pharaoh.
He's acting like Pharaoh.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
They were trapped in his office. He wouldn't let him go.
No, they wouldn't let him go. Yeah, they wouldn't let him go to lunch.
Yeah.
I don't know what he did.
Oh man, that's funny. So fear God, and it says the people remained standing at a distance as Moses approached the total darkness where God was.
Yeah.
What a scene that is.
Yeah.
Man.
Moses was the man, bud.
And it says, then the Lord told Moses, this is what you are to say to the Israelites. You have seen that I have spoken to you from heaven. So God's talking through Moses.
Yeah.
You've seen that I have spoken to you from heaven, the sky. Do not make gods of silver to rival me. Do not make gods of gold for yourselves. So this is another reiteration of the idolatry.
Yeah. Don't do it.
And then he says in verse 24, make an earthen altar for me and sacrifice on it your burnt offerings and fellowship offerings, your flocks and herds. I will come to you and bless you in every place where I cause my name to be remembered.
I love this passage.
If you make a stone altar for me, do not build it out of cut stone. If you use your chisel on it, you will defile it. Do not go up to my altar on steps so that your nakedness is not exposed on it.
Yeah.
So what's the deal with all that, man?
Well, so let's talk about it from like critical scholarship. Mm-hmm. That critical meaning like folks who kind of study the Bible as a
Just
conglomeration
yeah.
of an ancient text that's interesting because of its historical value, right?
Yeah,
They
they're
don't
not
really
necessarily
believe
Christians and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so they look at this and they're like, "Look here, this is from the Yahwist or the Elohim document. They got the JEDP, right?
Yeah.
And so they think that there's like actually 4 books floating around
Yeah.
in the first
That
5 books
become combined.
that they
into-
combined
yeah.
sometime after the thing. They've got
Yeah.
it divided up into periods:
Yeah.
the Yahweh period, the Elohim period, the priestly period, and the Deuteronomic period.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
JEDP.
JEDP. And so they would look at this and say, "This is early. This is early. This is probably Elohim.
Yeah, it's
This is pre-temple,
Yeah.
pre-tabernacle. It's actually probably post. It's probably pre-exile because once they got back, they're trying to centralize the government, and so they changed the worship. But they're so dumb; they just left all this stuff in their book.
Yeah,
I think it's
That's what
ridiculous.
yeah. So he wasn't saying that the Bible's dumb. He's saying that these critical scholars
It's
think that they are dumb.
Yeah, they think that this
Yeah.
is just a leftover that somehow that
They just overlooked.
left it in here.
No,
Yeah.
this
No.
is what the Lord said through Moses right when he came off the mountain.
But the worship does change, right? He actually forbids them from using these altars very soon.
Yeah.
And now then they're only allowed to worship at the tabernacle. The second thing is to notice anybody can make these offerings.
Yeah. So let's set it up a little bit.
Yeah.
I think you skipped a part.
Oh,
because
whoopsie.
what happens? You skipped saying that later on these altars are prohibited.
Yes, they are.
To
Yeah,
say,
that's
that's
right.
why they believe that this is like some kind of like JEDP.
Right. It's like,
stuff.
well, in this spot, God tells them to worship this way. Later, he tells them to worship another way. So what we have here is like competing documents and how we can see here how the worship of Israel changed, and it's kind of left over in these cobbled together
right.
stories.
Yeah. And so when he came off the mountain, he told them to worship like this.
Yeah.
And it's so fascinating. It's an earthen altar.
Yeah.
You don't chisel nothing. It's just it's supposed
Keep
to be
it simple, stupid.
The easiest thing to be. Anyone can do this.
Yes.
Anyone can make this.
That was actually the point.
Yes. And so like,
And he didn't want it to be elaborate. He's like, don't put a chisel to the stone. You'll defile it. And you might think, what, is he making the rock dirty? No, God knows that if me and you are neighbors and I go out there and I build me an altar and I chisel out a super nice little altar,
Yep.
you're going to go out there and make yours a little bigger, a little fancier. You're going to carve some stuff.
Yep.
And the next thing you know, we got this weird altar competition out there and it's going to lead to idolatry.
yep. And who's supposed to be the folks who do things at altars?
The priests.
Priests.
That's what I'm saying. This is
They're
priests.
all priests.
They're all priests. Right.
Everyone's a priest.
The Levitical priesthood has not yet been implemented.
Yep. The tabernacle's not here.
Not here.
They don't need it.
No.
They're all. It's a kingdom of priests. Just one chapter 4. A kingdom of priests. A holy
They're
nation.
supposed to be priests.
A people for his own
Right.
possession.
And so when you read this through a critical lens, it's like, see, they totally changed it.
Yeah.
But if you read it from the sense that Moses was not dumb and that the Israelites and the prophets who put these things together are not dumb,
Yep.
there's a theme. Something happened.
Yeah.
So go back to Eden.
Yep.
In the beginning, Adam and Eve walked in the garden with God and were in his presence, right?
Yeah.
And then they were kicked out of his presence, right? They're kicked out. And so what's about to happen is Israel is fixing to collapse into idolatry within 40 days.
Yeah.
And when that happens, he disqualifies them from the priesthood.
Yep.
And he says, I've got to centralize this thing. If I let these idiots go around and build altars and worship, they're gonna fall into paganism in 20 minutes.
They're going to worship everything but me.
Everything but me. So
they
I'm going to
do.
have to consolidate. Yep. I'm going to have to make them all go to the same place. So we're going to have a regimented priesthood to make these offerings because I can't just. This can't be a democracy.
That's what Paul meant in Romans when he talks about where how sin, how law and sin abound.
Yes.
Like the more you sin, the more law you get.
Yes.
And the more detailed it gets. And the more separation you have between you and God.
Yes.
And so every one of these moments of sin is another wall up. And so it goes from
Because God will kill them.
Exactly, they're all sitting
He
in
is
front of
putting
the mountain of God, and everyone gets to be a priest. One collective sin from now. God's behind a tent.
Yeah.
And
and he warns them.
Yep.
Because he's like, I'm not trying to get away from you.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be near you.
Yep.
The problem is if I get near you and you do this, I'll kill you.
Yep.
That's seriously what it is. He's like, I cannot go into camp because there's uncleanness there, and I will kill them. When Moses is on the mountain, he's up there getting the 10 Commandments, minding his own business, the only guy who could go up there. And God's like, man, you ain't going to believe this. I'm going to put it in the same mountain. You ain't going to believe it. You ain't going to believe what's happening down there. I'm going to kill them all. We're going to talk about that.
Yeah. We'll get there. That's a couple chapters from here.
I'm going to kill them all.
Yeah.
And so he has to put barriers.
Yeah.
And he has to put defenders. And he has to put teachers. And they're like, hey, when you come here, you need to wash your feet. You need to wash your hands. You need to trim your beard. You need to do this.
And it's not like those things are catching God off guard.
No.
Like their failures. Like he knew this was happening.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the New Testament, right?
And this is a narrative that's showing like how quickly, the whole point is this is the demonstration of how quickly it takes, how quickly you can go from Eden to hell.
Yes.
That's like, it happens this fast.
It can go, it shows how fast you can go from favor to folly.
Yep. And
that happens in our lives.
This is a retelling of Genesis 3.
Absolutely.
And so we're seeing the same thing over and over again.
That's why in Hebrews, when he says to them, you've not come to a mountain that's smoking or the trumpet of God or the peals of lightning of thunder, but to a new Jerusalem and to a new temple, not made with men's hands. And to translate it to what we always say, he's saying, you guys live in a golden age.
Yeah.
You've not come to a smoking mountain. You've come to a fellowship of saints.
Yep.
A great cloud of witnesses who are cheering for you. And you've not been forbidden into God's presence. You've been invited to go into God's presence. Not outside in the courtyard, but right into the Holy of Holies.
Yeah.
You get to go in.
For sure.
With boldness,
approach
the throne of grace. So that's an amazing thing.
It is. So give us the big deal, man. Sum up this post 10 Commandments kind of moment.
So this moment is God hands out these laws, and he's like, I need to make sure they follow them. And so he shakes the mountain. And he brings the thunder. And they're like, we're going to die.
Yep.
And Moses goes, don't be afraid of this moment. God is just revealing himself to you so that you will fear him, because I'm about to hand you some laws, and you need to keep them. And if you're thinking about not to do them, remember what you saw today.
Yep.
Remember what you saw, and it don't work, because they're like, wait. One of my favorite things in this is that they keep saying, we will do all that he says, and I'm like, oh no,
liars,
liar. Yeah. So the big deal is that God shows himself.
And offers them as a Eden 4.0 or something.
Yes,
at this
like
point.
I'm going to meet with you.
Yeah.
Make altars. Worship there.
The land that you're about to go into is about to be awesome.
Yeah,
God will be everywhere.
God will be everywhere. You're going back into the land that Adam and Eve were kicked out of.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be with you, and make simple altars. I'm not asking much of you.
Yeah.
Make them out of dirt. And if you want to make them out of rocks, that's fine, but don't use a chisel. Just stack them up.
So accessible.
And don't make steps.
Yep.
So that your nakedness won't be exposed. It sounds dumb, but they didn't have undies. But also, like, if you make steps, it's going to start being elaborate.
Yeah.
He doesn't want an elaborate thing. Just make it simple so you can walk up to it.
Yep.
And you can offer your sacrifice on it, and I'll be with you, and I'll accept your offerings. And it's going to be great, guys. It's going to be great.
Yep.
And they're going to be like, oh, and don't make anything out of silver and gold. And like Moses goes in and like, wow, let's make a golden calf on a great big altar.
That's literally what they do.
Holy smokes!
All right, so next week we're gonna look at a couple of laws that pop up right next. It's kind of like a nice little law giving segment, and then it gets to the great collapse. Oh, where there's a covenant ceremony. I forgot about that.
Oh, it's good because he's going to explain the laws of polygamy.
Yeah. Yeah.
We need to know that today.
Yeah. All right, so that's it, folks. Thank you for listening to the Big Deal podcast. I just got that.
Yeah, I knew you didn't catch it at first. I looked in your eyes. It was closing it up.
I was closing it up.
Closing it up, and it was like, wait, what?
Did he say polygamy?
Yeah, that's what it is. It's
Yeah.
like, hey, if you take another wife, you can't stop feeding the first one. I'm dead serious, man.
You need to know these all.
You need to know that.
All right.
And so when you have to pay that alimony because you got divorced, it ain't a real divorce because you're still paying for that woman.
Yeah. All right.
It's biblical. Somebody just got mad.
All right. Thanks everybody for listening to the podcast.
I love
We'll
you. I'm
see you
just
next
kidding.
week, and hope you listen then too.
Yeah, we love you.
Love you.